Yes, recording in progress. Perfect. Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you everyone for being here. My name's Frederica Brandt, and I am happy to help introduce our Green Building Summer Coffee Break series on green building certifications. So we know green buildings are better for people, the environment, and our bottom line, and our stewards in natural steward natural resources and lower our environmental impacts. So, and if you're in the building industry, that during construction and renovation and repurposing, demolition or occupancy, buildings use energy and water, raw materials, general waste, and emit emissions. So this has all prompted the creation of green building standards, certifications, and rating systems aimed at reducing the impact buildings have on the natural environment through sustainable design principles. And we kind of like to say buildings are the heroes in the fight against climate change. And therefore we have our 2021 Summer Coffee Break series exploring different certifications every other Friday, 10 to 10:30 a.m. Until September 24th. So we'll see you in 2 weeks, hopefully. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Abigail. Abigail Sirevaag is a project coordinator at Edward Jones. Her career has provided a plethora of opportunities for the advancement of sustainability in the areas of interior design and corporate social responsibility. At Edward Jones, she had the opportunity to drive corporate sustainability strategies and change. She has her master's degree in sustainability from St. Louis University and is an adjunct instructor at Maryville University, teaching an Issues in Sustainable Design course, which reviews general green building design concepts, such as the LEED rating system, the WELL building standard, while we're all here today. And it serves as a high-level preparation for both the LEED Green Associate exam and the WELL AP exam. So, and as I would love to shout out that Abigail currently serves as a USGBC-Missouri Gateway Chapter Board of Directors, a director at large, and has been a member of our education committee since 2015. So Abigail is a leader in this Green Buildings Are Better community. So please take it away, Abigail, and welcome everyone.
Well, thanks, Freddie. That was great. I appreciate it. And welcome, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about updates to the WELL building standard that have happened in the last year or so. And there's been a lot of things they've been doing with COVID in response to COVID. So high level, we're going to go over those concepts and what has been going on with WELL. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So just to level set and to give everyone a very brief overview of the WELL building standard, this graphic just shows the kind of expanse that the WELL building standard has as of today. This was from their website as of yesterday. So the International WELL Building Institute is the group that facilitates the WELL building standard. So you'll see both terms when you're looking at the WELL website. The WELL building standard focuses on the health and well-being of the building occupants. So like LEED is focused a lot on the building itself. WELL has a lot of that as well, but it's also very human-centered of a standard for sustainability. So just as a reminder, WELL is very holistic when it comes to sustainability. So it starts in design, goes through operations with the credits, and then follows up with policy. And it's interesting because WELL makes you recertify every 3 years for your project. So it does really keep you accountable and in this holistic fashion. And the policy part is interesting to me as well, because it does take it beyond just opening of the building and keeping it going. It actually helps the team facilitate the sustainable action going forward. So this might look a little bit familiar if you know LEED, where you have different hierarchies of points for different levels of certification. Bronze is highlighted here as the lowest level. That's actually a new level they introduced this year with WELL version 2. And so the threshold has gotten a little lower if you'd want to just do basically all the pre-required items for WELL and still pursue that certification. So you can see bronze, silver, gold, and platinum for the different point thresholds here. And I thought this was really interesting to show how the standard has evolved. So WELL version 1 was released about 5 or 6 years ago now, and has been slowly gaining a lot of steam in the industry. They then did a WELL version 2 pilot where they introduced the new version, the first draft. They allowed for public comment. The people tried it out in their projects and they had lessons learned. So you can see then WELL version 2 where it ended up and is officially released as of today. The biggest difference that I can tell with this is that you can see the number of preconditions. So you see 41 here for WELL version 1 and how it went down with WELL version 2. If I had to guess, my best guess is that perhaps the preconditions, which are like LEED's prerequisites, where you have to meet all the preconditions to even go for WELL certification, could have been limiting to some people who wanted to get certified. So what they've done is put the heavier weight on the optimizations, which are not required, but are highly encouraged, and a little less weight on the pre-required preconditions, as you can see. And this is a little bit more in depth of how the versions have evolved. So WELL version 1, which is the original version on the left, had 7 categories, you can see there. And then WELL version 2 moved to 10. And so the ones with the orange stars are the newer categories. So they've introduced a movement category, which deals a lot with ergonomics, with sit to stand, moving, walking, things in the office. We've heard a lot of research about the hazards of a sedentary lifestyle, so that is all in that movement category. They've also taken the original comfort category and divided it into that thermal comfort and the sound category. So they've thought those two concepts were strong enough on their own to make their own individual categories. Also, they've added a materials group, which I think was really needed at the beginning. They had a few credits in the original about materials, but now this is all about the health and well-being of what you put in your space, furniture, fabrics, paint, anything that goes into the interiors and what it's made of. And finally, community. So this has a lot to do with diversity and inclusion, community relations, emergency preparedness initiatives, more of that dealing with the people and the community aspects that are now part of the standard. And I don't have time today to go through all the differences. So there is a link here that is very helpful if anybody wants to dig into it. It tells you exactly what credits have changed, what categories have changed between WELL version 1 and version 2. Like I mentioned earlier, one thing I really love about WELL and just wanted to remind people of is that they do require on-site testing for water and air. So they take samples, they evaluate the air quality, the water, ingredients of the water, make sure things are up to par. And then we have that performance review period. You actually have to submit data for some of the credits quarterly to keep you accountable. And then that equals that performance verification. So this keeps happening every quarter for those 3 years. You don't have to do the on-site testing every quarter, but once you get recertified, you do have to do it again. But that I really like the data heavy emphasis of WELL. So being a scientific and research organization, the IWBI definitely jumped on the wagon with COVID to start looking at what they could do about it, if there's anything they could do to help out or anything they could implement to help going forward. So what they did was form this task force that's listed here. They were looking for anything in guidelines they could affect and also anything they could enhance with the WELL building standard itself. So what came out of this was this precondition for emergency preparedness. So this was a direct response to COVID that's now in version 2. I just wanted to highlight that this, this was a direct result from COVID. So they now require projects to undertake a risk assessment, create emergency management plans, and have that education of the occupants on the plan. And it is a precondition, so that means every project that now goes through for WELL version 2 certification will be required to have this kind of plan. Whether they use it or not is up to them, but it does require them to go through the action of forming the plan and educating folks about the plan. One other good thing about WELL version 2 is it's a lot more flexible for the people using it. So whether your organization, this is a fruits and vegetables example, but maybe you don't have food on campus, maybe you only have vending machines or something, so this doesn't apply. There are different requirements. You can see part 1 and part 2 listed here on the right under requirements. So you can actually go through these and you can meet the basic preconditions, but also get points and different levels of points for the different parts. So for example, if this fruits and vegetables category really did apply to you, you could get maybe 5 points on it. If it didn't, and you just had to meet the basics, maybe you get 1 or 2. So it is really customizable for folks to use the standard. And this kind of format relays all the way through all the different credits in the standard. Another thing they added was, you can see on the right, in about the middle of the page, there's a big blue button that says Submit Equivalency Proposal. So once again, if this certain credit doesn't apply exactly to your organization, or you have a more limited scope of influence, you can actually submit an equivalency proposal to try to get that point if you still think it's applicable. And WELL will evaluate that and perhaps give you the points if they agree. So once again, it is nicer to have those alternate adherence tabs and be able to be a little more flexible in certification. And one thing, what this really struck me as well with the new version, so we talked a lot about in this chapter, the USGBC, about pricing of a certification, how expensive it can get. It might be limiting for some. And so WELL is actually taking an initiative to give a discount to some of these more emerging markets. So you can see government, municipal buildings, nonprofits. So, the more buildings we can get certified to be healthy for their occupants, the better. And I thought this really struck me as a great initiative with the new version. A little bit about the new WELL AP exam. So they are actually overhauling the entire WELL AP exam to reflect version 2. That will start at the end of September of this year, so coming very quickly. I put the general reference materials there on the right. I do appreciate that they completely redo the exam every time there's a new version. The professionals are learning the most up-to-date information. The only thing to note is that brown box on the bottom is if you do have older study materials or you want to take the exam on version 1, you have to do that by September 5th, or you will need to study the new material. I actually I'm in the process of studying, so that's my deadline for personally, and then I'm going to also study the new WELL AP for version 2 as well. And a few other things WELL's been doing. You may or may have not have seen some public commercials about this WELL health and safety rating. Lady Gaga did a commercial, Jennifer Lopez did one. So basically they created a kind of a different rating system. This is not full WELL certification by any means. It's only to certify your facilities for cleanliness and operational procedures to help people feel better about coming back to the building after COVID. So the original idea was, you saw the seal on the door, like, okay, I know this building is doing these cleaning things or these sanitation things. I feel good about going in there. So that was kind of the whole campaign. And you can see those 6 health safety themes that this certification does rely on here. The other thing they've been doing is this has been picking up steam a lot in the last year is WELL Portfolio. And I work for Herbert Jones, so we have about 2 million square feet just in our home office. And so portfolio certification is going to be really helpful for us when we pursue this and if we pursue it. But basically you can work with all of your buildings in a really awesome database kind of operation to work towards collecting data for each of your buildings, working to see how close your buildings are for certification. You can certify buildings in groups. You can certify buildings one-off. It's also great because you can submit one policy for your organization, just per se that emergency preparedness policy. So if you submit that once, that covers your entire portfolio. You don't have to do that for every building, like an individual building certification. So the data platform seem to be really great with this. Also, it really is scaled to that impact. And I think it already has a lot of the like JLL, CBREs already enlisted in this. And I think it's only going to grow more as people see the advantages of certifying as a portfolio rather than individual things, if that applies. And then the last thing, a last quick update. So this is their global research and focuses on. So as I mentioned, the IWBI is a very research-heavy organization. So they've been working on this about the last year. I think they started before COVID, and they've identified these 12 research areas that are on the left that have strong influence to the industry right now. So this means they'll be updating this as things maybe become more pertinent. And what they're doing is actually, they're calling it activation of these concepts. The first one is actually climate change, which is very urgent for all of us right now. And that means they'll be focusing their research efforts on that topic. They're going to release papers. They're going to see if they have any findings that'll influence the next version of WELL, kind of the holistic look of how the green building health and well-being of occupants are impacted by climate change. And you can see the other topics there as well. So I know it was really quick. I wanted to give a brief overview, though, of what was going on with WELL, and we can open it up for questions.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you, Abigail. Yes. Feel free to go ahead and unmute yourselves or type a question into the chat, and I'm more than happy to speak on your behalf. Thanks.
I have a quick question. Thank you so much for the presentation, Abigail. Do you know of any projects that are actively pursuing WELL right now? It would be interesting to see how they're pursuing it in light of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. So you can, one thing to note, I guess, it's also with LEED, you can go back a version. So if you registered with WELL version 1 a while ago, you can still do version 1 if you prefer. You know, I haven't seen, if I had to guess, some projects that already have WELL might not be going for the health and safety rating. It might be the opposite. If you don't have a WELL building, you might want to go for the health and safety rating. I know there's been a huge uptick in that health and safety rating since the pandemic and people re-entering the workplace. So if I had to guess, I would say that's the most popular version right now to date.
Now, Abigail, we've also noticed a pretty large influx of businesses also finding interest in Living Building Challenge and Living Product Challenge certifications as well. Are you able to expand on how an organization that might be interested in investing into products or buildings that meet the Living Building or Living Product Challenge certifications and how those parlay with WELL and LEED certifications as well?
Mm-hmm. I think it really depends on what your priority is for the building. So if you are most concerned with the health and well-being of your occupants, I would do WELL. If you're most concerned about having a net zero impact with your building, structure and energy, that's probably either the Living Building Challenge or the LEED certification. But it would really just depend on the priorities. I know lots of buildings actually they have LEED and WELL certification because they do complement each other in a lot of ways. So that's always an option too. If you didn't want to just pick one, you could complement those with each other.
That would be interesting to see how those segue together, LEED and WELL. After your presentation, I never really looked at WELL. I knew that it was, a certification, but I think it would be a really interesting discussion of how to segue those two. Not to add more to you, Abigail.
Oh no, yeah, I didn't include it today, but there are some documents out there from, I think, IWBI on how to kind of cross-reference and what features might relate to LEED and vice versa. So they do try to make it as streamlined as possible because I think they realize a lot of people want both, or they want to see how they can meet in the middle, and then maybe branch off to the occupant level and then the building level for LEED and WELL respectively. But yes, there is a lot of thought about that, and I think they didn't want to polarize people as well with, you have to choose one or the other. They'd like you to do both if you have the opportunity to do both. So. And I think I personally think WELL also fills a lot of holes of LEED, right? And probably vice versa as well. So with WELL, you're not going to talk about the efficiency of your boilers per se, right? So you're going to get that in LEED, and in WELL, you're going to get more about, we need these stress management programs for our employees. So I think they really do have a lot of complements where if you did both, I feel like your building and your space would just be really spectacular for everyone involved. So.
I guess, Abigail, in your experience with working with WELL, if you kind of have done a project, like out of those 10 concepts, like which do you feel kind of have either like the greatest impact on the environment or the people, or kind of which one you kind of enjoy the most?
Yeah, no, I personally, I think the movement category was one of the most profound innovations, especially even though it wasn't a category 5 or 6 years ago, it was still in standard. And I think that really got people thinking about, okay, what can we do for our employees? How can we incorporate it to stand? And how do we get people to walk more instead of taking the elevator? So that really started a lot of conversations, I feel like, at that time. And environment-wise, I think the air quality standards are great, as well as the water, because you actually have to take physical samples of your conditions, and it's unfortunate if you're for some reason didn't meet that condition. There's something you can do about it. You couldn't get certified, but hopefully you would be able to rectify, right? If the water level had too much ammonia or something, you could rectify that and make sure everyone has the right drinking water quality, for example. So I think just that environmental aspect of how it even affects our people is really great. I think there was
Abigail, Abigail, this is Hannah. Does the standard, does somebody help train you how to take a water sample and how to measure all these other things? Is that all spelled out? And so is that on your staff to perform?
So I think it's a little bit of both. At least before the pandemic, they actually had WELL advisors essentially from the IWBI come out to visit the site. So they would actually take the samples themselves and send it to the lab. I also know there are third-party groups you can work with that help you with that sampling. So if you don't want to do it personally as the owner, you can hire someone to do that. I would assume that you could probably take your own samples, though, if it's just kind of filling some bottles, right, with water. The air quality would be harder, I would assume, because there'd be kind of tools you'd need to measure the air quality. You could bottle it up, I guess, but not as well as the water. The third-party groups, though, seem to be the answer if you don't want to have the International Well Building Institute come to your site at this time.
Right. We also have one question in the chat. Yes, from Brandon. Yeah, is there a general cost for certifying with WELL?
I'm sorry, my Zoom just crashed, but I'm still here. So the cost was, it's by square footage, and so it really depends on your building or your space. I believe there is a maximum threshold, though. If you have if you have a 20-story building, they're not going to probably make you pay for every individual square foot. So there are a lot of guidelines on the website, Brandon, if you want to look at that, if you are pursuing the well certification.
Cool. Does anyone else have any other questions or just green building certification questions in general?
Yeah, Abigail, this is Johanna. I'm wondering what was
Yeah.
shifted away from a prerequisite. I know there's a different name for it in well to an optimization. So what did they take out that's no longer required by everyone? Do you know offhand?
That was that link kind of in the PowerPoint, and it's every category was impacted in some way, honestly. So that kind of struck me from a while ago. When we first looked at well at Edward Jones, the one.
Oh.
100 grams of sugar or something in it. So that was, if you look at any kind of soda, snacks, right? A lot of those are not applicable to that. So that was one that they edited as an example. And that if you look at that link, you can see all the different ways it was impacted. Apologize, we didn't have time to get into that today.
Yes, yeah, we can definitely share that link that was in the PowerPoint, Abigail's PowerPoint. Great.
Yeah, I can send it along.
How's everybody feeling?
I apologize, my video failed. I'm glad I had the phone though.
Yes, yeah, that was a great backup. Smart thinking. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us for our third summer coffee break series on green building certifications. So I'm going to just post a few links in the chat of what's coming up next. Abigail, we're getting lots of thank yous. So next Friday,
questions or anything, feel free to reach out. So Freddie has my email.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll send a follow-up. Yeah. Our next summer coffee break series will be on the Green Globes certification. And then also, if you're not already a member, I'm going to paste the link to our membership page on our website. And then if you are interested in kind of really getting after the operation and maintenance and energy efficiency side of building, then we have a G Pro training coming up at the end of July. That's a three-day event. And as always, please follow us on your social medias and yeah, share anything that you're involved with. We'd love to know what's going on in your Green Buildings Are Better community. Oh, thank you, Victoria. So good to see you guys. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.